What if southern Brazil broke away from the rest of the country? A bold move that could spark economic chaos, political shockwaves, and a completely new nation in South America. Would Brazil collapse without its southern engine? Or would the South realize independence comes with a painful price? The truth will surprise you. If you're into geopolitics, bold ideas, and untold consequences, subscribe now, smash the like button, and let's uncover what happens if the South says goodbye to Brazil. Why would southern Brazil want independence? Southern Brazil, comprising Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and Paraná, has long nurtured a distinct identity. The region is heavily influenced by European immigration, especially German, Italian, and Polish cultures, which set it apart from the rest of the country. This cultural difference, combined with a higher standard of living and stronger institutions, has led many in the region to feel more aligned with developed nations than with the central government in Brasilia. Historically, the South has flirted with independence before. The Ragamuffin War, 1835-1845, was one of Brazil's longest internal conflicts, where Rio Grande do Sul tried to establish an independent republic. Although ultimately unsuccessful, the sentiment of rebellion and regional pride never fully disappeared. Modern separatist movements like O Sul é o meu país continue to promote the idea of autonomy, arguing that the region would be better off managing its own economy and resources. Economically, many southern Brazilians feel they are paying more than they receive. The South contributes a significant portion of Brazil's GDP, but often complains of limited returns in terms of federal infrastructure, education, or investment. This perceived economic injustice fuels resentment and feeds the idea that a separation would free the South from what they see as fiscal exploitation by the federal government. Additionally, there's a growing narrative that independence would allow the South to become a small, efficient, and prosperous nation, comparable to Uruguay, Chile, or even some European microstates. But while the idea may sound appealing to some, the path to independence is far more complex and risky than many imagine. The economic impact: who would lose more? Southern Brazil is an economic engine. Combined, Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and Paraná generate nearly 16% of Brazil's GDP. The region is a powerhouse in agriculture, producing soybeans, beef, pork, and wine, and in industry with strong manufacturing and export capabilities. If these states were to secede, Brazil would lose a vital chunk of its tax base, exports, and overall economic stability. One of the biggest losers would be the federal government. The South contributes billions in tax revenue, and its separation would create a deep fiscal hole. Public services funded at the national level, such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, would immediately feel the impact. Inflation could rise as the rest of Brazil struggles to replace lost agricultural output, and the real could face devaluation due to economic uncertainty. But the South wouldn't walk away untouched. Over 75% of its trade is domestic, meaning independence could instantly disrupt commercial relations with the rest of Brazil. New customs borders, tariffs, and currency conversion issues could cripple internal trade. What once moved freely across state lines would now face bureaucracy and cost. Industries in the South would need to find new international markets or renegotiate deals from scratch. Beyond trade, building a new country from the ground up is extremely expensive. The South would need to create a national currency or adopt a foreign one, build embassies, create a central bank, and establish new institutions, including military defense. While it may seem like a clean break on paper, in practice, the South could face years of financial instability and international isolation before reaching any version of prosperity. Political and social fallout. The political consequences of southern Brazil's independence would be immediate and far-reaching. A successful secession could set a dangerous precedent for the rest of the country. Other regions, like the North or Northeast, might demand the same autonomy, leading to a potential fragmentation of Brazil. The federal government would likely respond with legal resistance, political crackdowns, or even military pressure to prevent further disintegration. Internationally, the South would face major diplomatic hurdles. Most countries, including Brazil's allies, would hesitate to recognize a breakaway republic without Brazil's consent. Global institutions like the United Nations, Mercosur, and the Organization of American States would likely side with Brasilia. This could leave the newly formed Southern Republic isolated on the world stage, excluded from trade agreements and unable to access global markets or secure foreign investments. Socially, the split would create widespread confusion and tension. Families with relatives across state borders might suddenly find themselves divided by immigration laws and new nationalities. Residents would need to choose citizenships, navigate visa requirements, and adapt to new legal systems. The transition could be especially hard for the elderly, the poor, and those with limited access to legal assistance or financial resources. Moreover, the internal unity of the South itself isn't guaranteed. Even within Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and Paraná, opinions are divided. Some urban populations may support independence, while rural areas might reject it. Disputes over leadership, ideology, and national direction could spark internal political conflicts, turning the dream of independence into a nightmare of division and instability. Who would really lose more? At first glance, it might seem that Brazil would be the biggest loser. Losing 3 economically productive states would weaken the national economy, reduce federal revenue, and damage the country's global reputation. It would also send shockwaves through Latin America, signaling that even long-established nations can fracture under internal pressure. The Brazilian government would likely face both domestic backlash and international scrutiny for allowing the separation to occur, but the South would face a different kind of loss, one that is slower and more structural. While it might keep more of its tax revenue and gain political autonomy, it would also inherit the burden of building a state from scratch. A new currency, constitution, defense system, trade policy, and global diplomacy would require enormous resources, expertise, and time. Economic instability and international isolation could quickly replace any initial optimism. In terms of the people, millions of ordinary citizens on both sides would lose the most. Cultural unity, family ties, job opportunities, and shared infrastructure would be torn apart. Social unrest, population migration, and economic uncertainty would likely hit working-class families the hardest, those with the least ability to adapt to sudden political change. Independence might serve elites or ideologues, but it could devastate everyday lives. Ultimately, there are no true winners in this scenario, only different kinds of losses. Brazil would suffer in the short term, economically and politically. The South would suffer in the long term, institutionally and diplomatically. Independence might sound like freedom, but the price of division is almost always higher than expected. The idea of southern Brazil breaking away may seem bold or even romantic, but reality paints a much more complex picture. While Brazil could lose a critical economic region, the South would face immense political, social, and financial challenges. In the end, separation doesn't guarantee success. It creates new borders, new problems, and uncertain futures. So what do you think? Would an independent South thrive or fall apart? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you love deep geopolitical content, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and join us for the next eye-opening episode.